Have you ever just looked out your window at all the houses and streets and buildings and wondered, how did all of this get here? You know, from a tiny little village to a massive city, every single place we live tells a story. And today, we're going to unpack that story, why we built our homes where we did. Okay, let's get into it.
You know, it usually starts with something we can all relate to, right? A moment like this. We've all been there, stuck in traffic, maybe coughing a bit from the smog, and just feeling totally overwhelmed by it all.
And that feeling, it brings up a huge question. How did we get here? Why are so many of our cities so packed, so noisy, and honestly so polluted? Well, to figure that out, we've got to go way, way back to the very beginning.
So let's start with the basic building block, a settlement. The idea is super simple, but it's also incredibly powerful. A settlement is just any place where people build their homes. It could be one little hut in the middle of nowhere or a mega city with millions of people. It's our mark on the planet.
But our journey to these permanent homes? Man, it was a long one. For a long, long time, early humans or nomads. They lived in trees, in caves, always on the move, following their food. But then came the game changer, agriculture. The moment we figured out how to grow crops, we had to stay in one place to tend to them. And that's what led to trade, bigger settlements, and eventually those incredible early civilizations that popped up in river valleys.
But here's what's really interesting. Just because we started putting down roots didn't mean every single settlement was permanent. The choice to stay or to go has always been about what we needed at that specific time.
And that basically gives us two main types of settlements. You've got your temporary ones, places people used for a short time for stuff like hunting or gathering. And then you have permanent settlements, where we build homes to live in for good. And that's, of course, how most of us live today.
There's even a special word for one type of temporary living. Transhumans. It's a great example. It's basically when people who raise animals move with their herds from season to season, always searching for fresh pastures. Their whole life is tuned to the rhythm of nature.
Okay, so if you're not moving around with the seasons, if you're planning on staying put for a while, what makes one spot a great place to live and another one not so much? Why build a town here and not, say, a mile down the river?
Well, geographers have a term for this. It's called the site. And it's just the exact piece of land where a settlement starts to grow. And let me tell you, choosing the right site is maybe one of the most important decisions a community can make. It can be the difference between a city that lasts for thousands of years and one that just disappears.
You can think of this as the original real estate checklist. It's the recipe for success. You need a good climate, right? Not too hot, not too cold. You absolutely need water. The land has to be good for building on, and of course, you need fertile soil to grow your food. If you can check all four of these boxes, you're not just building a house, you're building a future.
And over time, as these settlements grew and got more complex, they started to split off onto two very different paths, creating the two kinds of worlds that we all recognize today.
I'm talking about the Great Divide, rural versus urban. In the village, life is all about the land, farming, fishing, that kind of thing. And the big perks? Wide open spaces and fresh air. But in the city, life shifts. It's all about manufacturing, trading, and services. And the benefits are different too. More jobs, better schools, and top-notch medical care.
And that pull toward the city, it is so strong. People move to urban areas for very clear reasons. They're looking for work. They want a better education for their kids. They need access to doctors and hospitals that you just can't find in a small village. Which brings us right back to where we started. Remember Gurpreet, coughing from the pollution? That powerful magnet of the city, the one that promises a better life? Well, it comes with some serious downsides. And here's the paradox of the modern city. That same incredible growth can lead to epic traffic jams, awful pollution, overcrowded housing, and even shortages of basic things we need like electricity and water. But here's the really cool part. Despite all these challenges, we humans are incredibly adaptable, and you can see that in our homes. The very way we build our houses shows how smart we are, how we've always found ways to work with our environment. I mean, just think about it. It's pure logic. If you live somewhere that gets a ton of rain, what do? You build a slanted roof so the water just slides right off. If your area floods every year, you build your house up on stilts. And if you live somewhere super hot, you use thick mud walls and thatched roofs to keep the inside nice and cool. It's brilliant, simple, and it just works.
So, at the end of the day, what's the big takeaway here? It's that from the very first cave all the way to a modern condo and a skyscraper, our homes tell our story. They are a physical record of our needs, our environment, and our constant search for a place to belong. The story of where we live is a story of constant change, constant evolution. We went from caves to cities. So that leaves us with one last really big question to chew on. As we face totally new challenges like climate change, what will the homes of tomorrow even look like?
You know, for almost all of human history, the world felt like this enormous, unconquerable place. Just getting from one town to the next was a huge deal, let alone crossing a continent. In this explainer, we're going to dive into the incredible story of how we solved that problem, how we literally conquered distance. So yeah, how did we actually do that? How did we go from journeys that took months of grueling walking to just hopping on a plane and being on the other side of the world in a matter of hours? That's the big question we're tackling today. And the answer is a wild ride through some of the most amazing innovations in human history. I mean, for thousands and thousands of years, things barely changed. We walked. Eventually, we figured out how to use animals like camels or llamas to carry our stuff. But then, look at this, around 3500 BC, we get a true game changer, the wheel. All of a sudden, moving heavy things on land got way, way easier. What's kind of mind-blowing, though, is that the next massive leap forward, the steam engine, didn't show up for thousands of years after that. All right, so here's our roadmap for this journey. First, we're going to start on the ground, with the roadways that pave our world. Then, we'll get into the iron giants that connected entire continents, railways. After that, we'll hit the original superhighway, the waterways. And finally, we'll wrap it all up by looking at how this all made our planet feel so much smaller. Okay, first up, roadways. Let's be honest, for most of us, this is transportation, right? It's how you get to work, to the grocery store, everywhere. Roads are really the lifeblood of our local communities, the most basic and essential network we have for getting around over shorter distances. But here's the thing, not all roads are the same. We can basically split them into two big categories. You've got your metalled, or pucca roads. Think paved asphalt, concrete, stuff that's built to last through any kind of weather. Then you have the unmetalled, or katra roads. These are more like packed dirt paths, the kind you'll often find in more rural areas. And that difference, it's not just about what the road is made of. It can totally define the economy of a whole region. And we've gotten insanely good at building roads. We don't just put them on easy, flat land anymore. We figured out how to build them pretty much everywhere. I mean, just look at the Manali Leh Highway in the Himalayas. It's one of the highest roads on the entire planet. It's an absolute marvel of engineering, and it just goes to show there's almost nowhere we can't connect with a road if we put our minds to it. So now let's talk about the next massive leap forward, railways. If roads are the local arteries, then railways became the powerful workhorses. These were built to move huge amounts of stuff and tons of people over incredibly long distances. This is really where the world started getting connected on a massive continental scale. And you really can't talk about railways without talking about the Industrial Revolution. This whole period was about finding new ways to create power, and the invention of the steam engine, that was the secret sauce. All of a sudden, we could build a locomotive that could pull incredible amounts of weight. And that directly kicked off a massive worldwide boom in building railroads. The sheer scale of what railways made possible is just staggering. And there is no better example than the Trans-Siberian Railway. Just look at it. It connects St. Petersburg in the west of Russia all the way over to the Pacific coast. That isn't just a set of tracks. It's a lifeline that literally stitched together an entire continent. What an epic achievement. And you know, this incredible ambition to connect huge territories with steel wasn't just happening in Russia. The tech went global. In Asia, for instance, the Indian Railway Network is another amazing example of the power of rail. It's the largest on the entire continent, a huge, complex system that is absolutely essential to the country's economy and the daily lives of millions of people. The age of the railway had truly arrived. But, you know, way before the first train ever left the station, we had another kind of highway, water. Waterways are our oldest form of long-distance transport. And believe it or not, even today, they are still the absolute cheapest way to move heavy, bulky stuff from one side of the world to the other. And kind of like with roads, we can break waterways down into two main types. First, you've got your inland waterways. These are rivers and lakes that are deep enough to navigate, like the Great Lakes in North America. They're super important for trade within a country. And then you have the big ones, sea routes. These are the vast oceanic highways that are the backbone of all international trade, connecting major ports all over the planet. And this table really gives you a snapshot of those key hubs in the global network. Ports like Singapore or Rotterdam or New York, they aren't just cities. They are these critical points where goods from all over the world come together before being shipped out again. What you're looking at here is basically globalization in action, all made possible because we mastered travel on the high seas. So we've paved the land, we've laid down tracks across continents, and we've mapped out the oceans. What's the end result of all of this? What's the ultimate impact? Well, it's something both simple and totally profound. Our planet has become incredibly, almost unbelievably, smaller. And if you boil it all down, it really comes to this. Every single one of these breakthroughs we've talked about, from the very first wheel to the giant container ships of today, it's all about saving two of our most valuable resources, time and energy. By making it easier to get from point A to point B, we've freed up massive amounts of both, and that allowed our societies to grow and develop in ways that would have been completely impossible before. This quote really puts everything into perspective. Just think about that for a second. A journey that used to take up months of someone's life, a dangerous, uncertain trip, can now be done in the time it takes to watch a couple of movies on a plane. That's not just a small improvement, that is a fundamental transformation of what it means to be human on this planet. So, we went from walking to flying, from months to hours. We've built this amazing global network that connects just about every corner of the Earth. And that leaves us with one last, really exciting question to think about. What's next? Now that we've basically connected the globe, what's the next big frontier in our mission to conquer distance? You ever stop and think about how incredibly small our world has become? I don't mean literally, of course, but think about how we travel, how we talk to each other. Today, we're going to dive into the amazing story of how technology basically conquered distance and, shrunk our planet. So how in the world did that happen? To really get it, we've got to start with the most basic problem we had to solve, just getting from point A to point B across this huge planet. All right, so picture this. It's the early 20th century, and a brand new invention comes along that completely changes our relationship with the sky, the airway. This was a total game changer for how we saw time and space. And this leap in tech was, it was nothing short of a revolution. All of a sudden, journeys that used to take weeks by boat, dealing with storms and all that, could be done in just a few hours, way up above the clouds. But, like with any powerful new tool, there are always trade-offs. Air travel gives us this unbelievable speed, right? It can get us to the most remote corners of the globe, but that speed costs a lot, making it super pricey. And it's still at the mercy of something as simple as a bad storm. And this is where that speed becomes literally a lifesaver. I mean, in a crisis, when roads are gone and there's no other way in, air travel saves lives. Helicopters become these incredible lifelines, getting into places that are otherwise impossible to reach, rescuing people and dropping off aid. Okay, so beating physical distance, that was only half the battle. What about the distance between our minds? Let's switch gears and look at how we figured out how to move ideas and information just as fast, maybe even faster. At its heart, communication is really simple, right? It's just getting a message to someone else. But the way we've done it, the tools we've built for it, whoa, that has gone through this massive, revolutionary change over the years. Seriously, it's an incredible journey when you look at it. We went from just talking face-to-face to having the power to reach almost anyone on the entire planet in a split second. Now, here's what's so cool about this whole progression. It's the scale. Each step didn't just make things faster, it dramatically blew up the reach of one single message. We went from one-to-one to one-to-many, and then one to millions. So this constant growth in reach, pushed forward by mass media and then satellites, it kicked off something huge, a full-blown information revolution. All of a sudden, information wasn't some luxury item anymore. It was becoming something for everybody. Through stuff like newspapers, radio, and TV, you could now inform, educate, and entertain huge groups of people all at the same time. For the very first time in history, knowledge wasn't just for a small, select group. It was for everyone. And get this, while we were all busy watching TV signals beam down from space, those same satellites were doing so much other work behind the scenes. They became these silent helpers up in orbit, exploring for resources, forecasting the weather, and giving us that critical heads up before disaster hits. Okay, so you can see where this is all headed. The speed of airplanes, the massive reach of mass media, the incredible power of satellites. It was all paving the way for the most game-changing communication tool humanity has ever come up with. And then, boom, the internet. But the internet wasn't just another way to broadcast stuff out. It was the missing piece, because it created a conversation. It was a two-way street that completely changed, well, pretty much everything about our daily lives.
I mean, just think about your own life for a sec. We went from waiting weeks for a letter to sending an email in a blink. We got untethered from our walls by cell phones, and suddenly, all these little errands like booking a flight or a movie ticket, you could just do it from your couch.
So when you put all of that together, all of these connections, the planes crisscrossing the sky and the invisible data zipping around the globe, what you get is the single, massive, interconnected global society. And that kind of leaves us with one big final thought, doesn't it? We've conquered distance. We have this incredible power to reach pretty much anyone, anywhere, instantly. The question isn't how we connect anymore. The real question is, now that we have all this power at our fingertips, what are we going to do with it?